copy of. But if you haven't, and you're continuously going online, then we'll have a quick look at that. Everything should be the same. Please check it. Don't leave it till Sunday night to try and argue with me over whether it was this Sunday or last Sunday or the one before. You'll see the 7th of October is the hand-in time at 5 p.m. That should correspond with the assignment, which we've just seen, and it was. And it should also correspond with the digital Dropbox. I'm offering a bonus half mark if anyone catches me out on the last two assignments with any of these times on any of those three that don't correspond. First person that comes up with an email saying, I think the hand-in time's wrong, will get a half a mark, alright? So they should all three correspond. There should be no way of a student being able to say, oh, but you said, or but you did this, alright? So when you ask my question, when's it due, I never answer that straight off. I've got multiple classes with different hand-in times. So you'll notice that we'll get through this section and then we have a break. But you are right, the hand-in time is the 7th, which is the halfway through the break. The good news about that is that it gives you a little bit of the break to work on it. The degree don't have that privilege. They're handing in at the end of week 10. I think it might even be week 9. No, it's week 10. So I do tend to favour a little bit the diploma students on the course and giving them a little bit of a heads up with their hand-ins a little bit easier. So after the break, it's a pretty stupid semester. After the break, we pretty much come back. I do a 3D demonstration. You get a week worth of labs with nothing but your own work, and then we do a test. So it's sort of pretty much all over by about a couple of weeks after the break. I don't set the timetables, that's done by Unitec itself. So going back to the last PDF we're on. So we've got concrete notes to get through today, 16 pages, not counting this one. I'm not going to read through the pages bit by bit by bit by bit. I don't ever do lectures like that. There are lecturers that do that, that's fine. They drone away there in their own way, and you're expected not to fall asleep. Unfortunately for you, there will be a couple of stories every now and then. So some of them are designed to keep you awake. Other ones might make you fall asleep. We will go through and cover different things. And in my normal way, I will say that there is definitely a question in the test on that, or you need to read that again for your assignment, or that would make a really good note in the assignment. Alright, so that's where you get your pen out and you start moving your fingers just to keep nice and warm and write down some notes. If you don't, and you're not, then make sure you've got a somebody filming it that you can get access to. Concrete. I guess the crux for a lot of jobs these days is in concrete and engineering, whether it's on site where you've got bridges and retaining walls and you've got civil engineering involved, or whether it's buildings or dams or anything like that. Concrete is a major engineering component in a lot of construction work. The reason for that is that concrete resists compression, basically, and however, it does not resist tensile stress unless we've got some sort of reinforcing. And you can see here from this very simple little sketch that cracks and things start occurring under tensile stress. So we need to do one of two things. We either put reinforcing in like this photo here in a cage situation, or even this photo here where they're doing vertical reinforcing, or we pre-stress the concrete, which is where we put reinforcing that is able to be stretched, we put tension on it, we pour the concrete around it, and we've got a pre-stressed member ready to go, already with that reinforcing inside it. So so that's giving you a wee bit of a background to it. The reasons why we put reinforcing in basically is to do with exactly what I said, the fact that it resists compression, or we put reinforcing, the fact that under tensile stress it can crack, so that keeps it together. And how does a reinforcing bar bind itself to the concrete? Well, we have these things here which are a wee bit like ribs. And when a bar's got that, we call it deformed. Strange sort of thing to call it, but that's what we call it. And these ribs here, when they're put in concrete, it's a shame, I've got some in my office. We'll try and remember to bring it to next week's lecture. Those ribs grab, when they're inside the concrete, they grab the concrete, and in an earthquake situation, it all moves at once. All right, doesn't do what a lot of buildings do in some third world countries where there's no reinforcing in the buildings, it just crumbles. But if there's reinforcing there and it's got deformed bars, it will hold hopefully the concrete together. Obviously, a 10 earthquake, it probably isn't going to, but definitely in New Zealand we do design up to 8, even more. Even the CCTV building, which obviously killed a lot of people in Christchurch, and I've got relatives down there that were right in the crux of everything at the time. Luckily everyone survived, but that building was designed to get everybody out of it. And the first earthquake that happened, there was no one in it because it was night time, but they would have got out. It was the second one that caused the issue, and the major problem in it was that no one should have been in the building after the first earthquake. I've got my opinions on it. I'm not impressed by the engineer who cheated his way through the degree or whatever that was supposed to be signing off the documents, but the reinforcing did do its job. And if you ask Wei Lu, the head of the degree here at Unitec, he's a very clever structural engineer. He would tell you exactly the same thing. We design buildings so people can get the hell out of it in a major earthquake. Okay? Whether they can go back in again should be another person completely different deciding on that. Unfortunately, in third world countries, a reinforcing bar is a week's or even more, 2 or 3 weeks' wages, which in New Zealand might be a couple of $1,000, maybe more, 3. So if someone was to give you $3,000 for one reinforcing bar, or to leave it out of the building altogether and just put it on the truck, there'd be a lot of labourers in Auckland that would be very tempted to do that. All right, but it's not worth that. It's only worth, at the very least, $10, $12, something like that for a reinforcing bar. No one's going to risk their job for that. But in a third world country, like I said, if you can take a couple of bars out here and there, put them on the truck, you've just saved your boss a lot of money. So that's what happens, and that's the best case scenario. I was doing a job in Indonesia. We'd done all the reinforcing for it, and it was up a very steep mountain, and the guy came and inspected it. He saw the truck coming up the hill with the concrete, and he signed it off and took off. Well, that truck took the best part of half a day to get up the hill. He got up the top of the hill, and by the time he got up the top of the hill, they'd taken all the reinforcing, putting it on the truck, and taken off with it. So the concrete pour went in without the reinforcing in it, and it was discovered many months later with a metal detector that there was no reinforcing in there at all. The contractor got paid, and it's a very good example of what happens in those countries. So your first job, if you're an engineer or a surveyor, could easily be go to such and such a site, count the reinforcing bars in a cage set up like that. And the two things that are important is the gap between the reinforcing bars and how many there are. Because contractors, even in New Zealand, will cheat it if they can get away with it. That's a different story. That's just accidentally not putting too many in there. When we calculate reinforcing for a thing like a abutment,